We've got more practical advice. Let's begin.
This is Debt Free in 30. Here's your host, Doug Hoyes.
4 weeks ago, on episode number 482.
I remember like
that
it was
show?
yesterday.
Exactly. We did a show on setting yourself up for success with an annual checkup. Remember that one?
Yes, I do remember.
And we talked about very practical things you should do to set yourself up for success. You update your will, insurance, investments, bank accounts, taxes, passwords, debts, the whole bit. So everybody should go to the link in the show notes and rewatch that episode. And that was a good show. I'm sure you will agree. Mm-hmm. But it was very detailed. And sometimes I think you have to step back and look at the big picture.
So we lost the forest for the trees?
Well, those are all important trees. But yeah, let's talk about the forest today. That's what we're going to talk about. So this is episode number 486. It's December. And next week, we will be airing our final show of the year, good old episode 487. Mm-hmm. It'll be released on December 30th. It's our annual year-end prediction show. We haven't actually recorded it yet.
Right.
But we'll review last year's predictions, which actually we did pretty good on, I think. So we'll see how the world moves between now and then. And, of course, we'll give our predictions for 2024.
Right.
Now, I don't want to, give out any secrets here.
No cat out of the bag.
No cat out of the bag, but I think, if you want the teaser, well, okay, interest rates are high. Inflation isn't zero. Unemployment, it's not looking great. The real estate market, okay, also not great. There's wars going on. The U.S. has a presidential election coming up in 2024. Canada may or may not have one.
So what you want to say is doom and gloom for 2024.
There's lots of stuff happening. Some of it isn't good. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So today's topic is, what big picture things should I do to prepare for the future, particularly if the future might be a little bit rocky? Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, and I'll bounce these ideas off you and you can tell me what you think. And this is one of those shows where Ted has no cue cards and doesn't know the topic before we start recording, because I think that's more fun. So, first question. I happen to believe we're either in a recession or heading into one.
Right. You've been saying that for months.
I've been saying that for a year. I've been, I guess, wrong.
The economists are still saying technically you're wrong, right?
Technically I'm wrong. Although in 2020, I believe we did have 2 quarters of negative GDP, so it has happened before. But my question is, when I'm looking at the big picture and preparing for the future, does it really matter if things are going to be great or bad? Aren't most of the basic principles the same regardless?
Well, they are, and quite frankly, great or bad from your perspective is for yourself. So the economy could be doing great, wonderful things, and you could still be expecting a pretty dismal 2024 because of what's going on in your life.
I think that's a critical point, that this is about you.
Right.
Okay? We play economists on this podcast, but we're not.
I took all those courses.
So did I.
I got the graphs with this going there and that goes over there.
I have a degree in economics.
The only time we use the calculus.
That's right. And yet, nobody knows anything about the future.
Right.
And we are not here to give macroeconomic advice. This is about you as a human being. And so I think you're absolutely right. The world may be great next year or horrible, but your situation could be different.
How you deal with it, what's most important to you. And quite frankly, if every individual dealt with it in a wonderful way, the world in general would be a better place too. So it's kind of it's an interesting
it's
thing.
It's a chicken and an egg thing, which leads which. So, okay, so I think when you're looking at the big picture, the most important question, the most basic question is, what do you want? That's really the question. So, we all live our lives day to day, and, what shirt am I going to wear today?
Yeah.
This shirt is like 15, 20 years old. It's I guess it was the only clean one I had. What am I having for lunch? These are all obviously important questions, but shouldn't we also ask the bigger question, which is, what do I want for the next year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever? So some things I might want in the future would be, well, I want to start a business, I want to retire, I want to buy a house, a car, whatever.
Right.
Those are not decisions you make every day. Presumably. Well, maybe some people start a new business every day. Some people buy a lot of cars.
Right.
But do you agree that, okay, you got to step back and look, more than a day ahead? Does that make sense?
But you know what you're talking about, right? What's that 4-letter word? Plan.
Plan. Oh, right. I like that.
You have to be able to, the only way you can ever achieve a goal is if you set a goal. And so the only way you can set a goal is if you decide, well, here I am now, this is where I want to be. How do I get there?
Okay, so let's talk about the plan then.
Yeah.
So there's many different options, and we are all limited. You remember from economics, scarcity, and you can only spend a loony once and
That's
all
right.
that kind of stuff. So, okay, I can only spend this loony once. Do I spend it on, current consumption?
Yeah. Do I spend it on needs or do I spend it on wants? Keep it simple.
And short or long term.
Right.
So, well, I guess there's spending, needs and wants, but then there's also investing, which is putting something away for the future.
And you're assuming that you're able to do that.
Exactly. So why would I not be able to do that? Well, obviously, because my income is not sufficient to cover my expenses.
I mean, generally speaking, when anybody's reaching out to talk to us, there's already something financially going wrong. And so there's a bit of a bias in the information that we're always going to present, because the individuals that most need our help are the ones that probably don't have the ability to look towards the future for that investing. Right now, they're dealing with their immediate needs, their immediate wants. How do I get by? How do I get through to the next day?
And okay, so let's talk about the very short-term plan then, which is how do I get through the next day? And then we'll talk about the bigger picture.
And you have to have the bigger picture. I wasn't meaning to suggest that just because folks are in trouble now, they shouldn't have a long-term plan. That's probably the wrong approach to everything. You've got to know where you want to go in order to get there.
But there's no point in talking about retirement if I'm going to have trouble paying rent next month.
Exactly right.
And so the only things you can do in the short term are what? Increase your income, reduce your expenses.
Yeah. I mean, short term, the old cliche, cash is king, is prominent. I mean, that's nothing else is more important than being able to meet your obligations as they come due, because if you can't meet those, you're already in a hole, and we got to take a different approach.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, there's no magic to any of that.
There isn't.
So, okay, I'd love to have my income double, but
Sure.
I can't just say to my boss, hey, can you make my income double?
Well, so as a goal, doubling your income is great, but as a plan saying next year my income will double, that's a little loosey-goosey. How are you going to get there?
So now you're hitting the key points here. So that was all the preamble. We just did 7 minutes of preamble there.
That's pretty good with no cue cards.
There you go, eh? But you once again have hit the key point here. And that is goals versus systems.
Right.
So yes, long term, if I would like to retire at age 65, which is coming pretty quick for both of us.
I'll get
here.
there first.
Yes,
That's
you
right.
will. But if that's my goal, okay, how do I actually go about doing that? Maybe I say I want to save $500 a month for retirement. Okay. Now, is that a realistic goal? I don't know. Is that a sufficient goal? I don't know. And the problem with a very specific goal like that is you will never save exactly $500 every month.
I mean, if you look at the world as black and white, a lot of the time you're going to be disappointed because you're not going to hit that white goal, and therefore that throws you in the black.
Yeah, it's impossible to nail it. So some months maybe I can save $700, and then I go, well, I guess my goal wasn't high enough.
Right.
But then there's other months where the car breaks down and you find out you've got a mouse in your engine. I know this is a hard story to believe, but happened to me. And so now my expenses are a little bit higher.
Right.
And so I can't save anything. And now I'm disappointed because, I didn't meet that goal.
Yeah.
So you got to have some kind of balance between the long-term, the specific and the general, I guess.
Flexibility, you want to call it financial agility, any of those kind of terms work. They're all catchphrases for saying you've got to be adaptable to your situation.
Yeah, which is why I'm a big believer in systems over goals. So, so let's, use the example we use all the time here, which is I want to lose weight. Okay.
Sure. That's a good goal.
It's a good goal for many people. So, my goal is I want to lose 10 pounds. And if I actually end up losing 9 pounds, I feel like I've failed, even though that's still pretty good. And if I lose 12 pounds, it's like, well, I guess I didn't set enough of a goal. And like you said, it's never going to happen exactly the way you want.
Right.
So a better example, and I've got a video I've already done on this. I'll put a link in the show notes to that. But the better option is a system. Okay, my system is I'm going to stop eating those cookies
But I bring cookies every week.
I know. There's cookies in the lunchroom even as we speak.
I'm an enabler.
Now, did you bring the protein bars today too?
Those are protein shakes because the kids don't like that flavor. They thought they would.
So I thought this was an experiment you were trying.
No, I bring apples and cookies.
Yeah, that's right.
The cookies are gone in one day. The apples are there for a full
week later. So that tells you how humans work.
Right.
So what's a good system? Well, I avoid cookies. I don't buy. I don't bring them into my house. You bring them into the office, so they're not in your house. So that's a great system. My system is I park the car at the far end of the parking lot and walk in, get a bit of exercise. I get off my bus one stop early, that sort of thing. So that way I don't have to be tracking my weight every day.
Right.
If I eliminate the bad stuff and put the good stuff in, well, it sort of gets there the same way. Mm-hmm. Now, is that possible financially? So a goal would be I'm going to save X dollars every month. What would be a system? So what is a system that I want to improve myself financially?
Right. Well, so an easy way to look at this would be take a week or two and see how you actually spend your money. So write it down. How many times do you stop at Timmy's or Starbucks? How many times do you actually go grocery shopping when you're hungry? How many times do you, order something on Netflix, a movie or something like that? I'm not telling you to change any of your habits now. I'm telling you to assess where you're at so you can take a look at it and then decide, okay, from a systems approach, I used to go to Timmy's 5 days a week. I'm now going to go every other day. Or I used to go to Starbucks on Saturdays and Sundays. Now I'm only going to do it on Sundays. Whatever it is that you're doing, make some conscious decisions to change the way that you're doing it. That's what you mean by systems.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I mean. And because ultimately, if you want to have more money, you either got to increase your income or reduce your expenses. There's no other math way to do it.
Frankly, if you don't do both at the same time, you're not going to get where you want to go.
You get way more bang for the buck if you can do both. And of course, the most important thing is reducing debt. We'll talk about that before we are done here. So, okay, let's talk about what you just mentioned then, which is systems to constrain spending.
Right.
So you just gave one example right there, which is I'm not going to go to the coffee shop every day. Maybe it becomes more of a special treat.
Right.
Mondays, okay, it's hard to get going at the start of the week. Fridays, it's the end of the week. The rest of the time, I make my own.
Yep.
So if you do that, you don't have to have a budget. You don't have to track it.
Nope.
It just happens.
You just got to say, this is what I'm going to do, and then have the discipline to stick with it.
Now, there are old-fashioned ways to constrain spendings. There's the jar method, the envelope method, whatever.
Right.
Where, okay, I got jars, I got envelopes, I put the cash in, and once, this is my jar for food, and once the jar is empty, I can't
don't get any
anymore.
more food.
Right. And I guess the new-fashioned way to do that is I've got a debit card that I just use for food, and I put money on that.
Right.
And is that a system? Maybe.
Well, it is. But you may not like the system, but it certainly is a system.
Yeah, because you are artificially constraining what you can spend.
Right.
But is it better to go the way you just described it? It was like, well, I just don't do that.
Right.
Now, I don't know how you apply that at the grocery store because...
Oh, but so the grocery store is all about psychology, right? They put the items that they want you to buy that they get good margins on at the end of the aisle. So I see this and I buy it even if I don't need it. The stuff that you really need, bread and eggs and stuff, are way at the back of the store. So you've got to go buy everything else in the store first. And just about everybody goes when they're hungry. And so if you don't put together a list ahead of time and you don't stick to the list, you impulse purchase all the time. I won't let my kids go to the grocery store with me anymore because I realized the bill went up about a third when the little buggers are with me. They're all teenagers now. They're not really little buggers.
Yeah,
but
big buggers. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, but there you go. So the system would be, number one, I have a big meal before I go grocery shopping.
Or at least I just make sure I'm not hungry.
Yeah, have something. And a list. Okay, that makes sense. Now, I guess the problem with a list is I say, okay, I want to get chicken, and I go to the grocery store and chicken isn't.
No chicken.
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. So,
well, and you don't necessarily have to have the list written down. It's like not everybody plans their menus ahead of time, but you got to have some idea what you want. Otherwise, you're just throwing stuff in the cart. Oh, that looks good. Woo.
Yeah, and I think planning menus in advance is a fantastic idea, except you get to the store and,
and it doesn't matter because Tuesday I just don't feel like getting home early enough to put a roast in the oven, so I'm just going to have something fast. I mean, It just doesn't work.
Well, and you get to the store and chicken's on sale. Oh, I guess we're having chicken this week, and it isn't on sale. Maybe we aren't, and so you gotta call an audible, as it were. But again, the point we're trying to emphasize here is that I'm making it automatic. I'm making it a system. So my system is I always eat something before I go to the grocery store. I always have a list that I
have a plan.
I have a plan, and I try to stick to the outer aisles more than the inner aisles. We had the food professor on the show a while ago, and he said that the prices are different at different times of the week.
That's true too.
Which surprised me because I never paid attention to it. But, lots of people do their shopping Friday, Saturday because that's the end of the week and I'm off work and whatever. So there's fewer sales. As a result, prices tend to be higher, or prices are just higher. Whereas, Monday or Tuesday, maybe the selection's a little lower, but the prices tend to be better. So, okay, my system is I go shopping on Tuesday, not on Saturday, that sort of thing. So that's a system on the food side. On the savings side, okay, I want to save money. Mm-hmm. If I wait till the end of the month and save whatever's left over, there won't be anything left over.
Right.
So a better system is, every paycheck
I think the approach that works best for most people is just get an amount diverted from your pay automatically so you never actually see it. So put it someplace that it's not easy to get at, a different bank that you don't carry the card for, whatever it is you do. If it doesn't hit your operating bank account, so it's not available for you to easily spend, you won't spend it.
Well, here at Hoyes Michaelis, we get paid electronically through a payroll service, as do virtually everybody these days.
Right.
Very few people get a check or cash anymore. And with our payroll service, and I believe it's the same with pretty much everyone, you can designate your paycheck to go to more than one bank account.
Correct.
So you can say to the payroll person, hey, Jennifer, I want, 80% of it to go to my main bank account, 10% of it to go to this other one, 10%, whatever.
Right.
So that, like you say, whatever hits my bank account, that's what I can spend.
Out of sight, out of mind.
The other way to do that would be to have an automatic savings set up so that every payday, this much goes into my TFSA, my RSP, my savings account, whatever. And you got to be a little bit careful because there's tax implications to all this stuff and you don't want to be over contributing or whatever. But the point is, it's a system.
Right.
I don't have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do that, then you pretty much nail it. Now, I guess a budget would be another form of system. I don't like budgeting, so I'm not.
People are intimidated by the whole concept.
Well, and it's a system is I set it and forget it. What was that guy with his grill, George Foreman? You set it and forget it, right? So
have you ever used one of those?
I have never used one.
It's not good.
Not good, eh? So you can't just set it and forget it.
There's no drip. They're very bad.
It's a mess. So I guess George Foreman will not be sponsoring the podcast. I do believe he made $100 million off of them. So
great.
He's clearly smarter than we are. So it has to be something where I don't have to put any thought into it. I think about it once and that's it.
Well, what you're really talking about actually is you put the thought into it up front, so you don't have to think about it again.
Which comes back to your plan point. So I make the plan and that's it. So my plan is, $50 of every paycheck goes directly into my savings account. I don't see it.
My plan is I'm going to make everything as automated as possible, so I just don't have the opportunity to screw up.
Right. And I'm taking the emotion out of it. That's what I'm.
Okay.
That's what
that's
I'm
another
really
good way to
doing
look at it.
So so let's talk about systems.
Does that mean you're
then.
not going to celebrate my birthday anymore?
No, it's the highlight of the calendar year for Hoyes Michaelis.
Right.
Let's talk about a system to reduce debt then.
Okay.
Because this is Debt Free in 30. This is what we're all about. So, one option is, at the end of the month, whatever money I have left over, I make an extra payment on my credit card.
Back up one step for me. The best way to reduce debt is to not incur it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for some way to solve your debt problems, the first one is to make sure your debt isn't growing anymore. That'll pay more dividends than anything else that we talk about. And so that falls right back on what we were just talking about, is make sure you can live within your means. You've got that plan in place. So now you've got that plan in place and there is some left over at the end of the month.
Then what do you do? Well, I guess part of the system would be I make sure the limit on my credit card is as low as is comfortable.
Yeah.
So when they offer me an increase to $10,000 or $1 million or whatever.
Yeah. And nobody needs 6, 7, 8 credit cards. You need one for personal expenses, maybe one for business if you've got that kind of job. If you really want to be anal about things, maybe you've got one for major purchases, car repairs or something. But if you got more credit cards in your wallet, it's just more opportunity for you to incur debt.
Right. So a good system would be get rid of some of them.
Right.
And I realize that everything we're saying here has a ripple effect. So if I cancel a credit card, then that's going to negatively impact my credit score because now I've got less available credit. That lowers my utilization. So I get that, but okay, take it out of your wallet then.
Right.
Put it in a block of ice and put it in the freezer or whatever. That way it's still giving you the benefit on your credit score, but not giving you the ability to spend. So, okay, so canceling unneeded credit cards, that's an obvious one. Reducing the authorized limit. Right. Again, you got to decide for yourself whether that makes sense in terms of your credit score. If your plan is you're buying a house next year and you need the maximum credit score possible, well, okay, I wouldn't be canceling anything. I just wouldn't be using them.
And use debt appropriately. So if you got a line of credit that's at prime plus 3 and you got a credit card that's at 18%, okay, put the debt on the line of credit, not on the credit card, right? Prioritize.
Yep. And then I guess the other system would be to increase my monthly payments. Right. So if you have a mortgage, well, a mortgage means it's the same payment every period. So you want to understand, how does your mortgage work? Can I prepay at certain times? Right. If you have a HELOC, explain what a HELOC is.
So that's a home equity line of credit. You're charge way too much interest, by the way, if you got a HELOC. But.
Well, it ain't zero anymore. It used to be zero, but it's
well, nowadays they're 7.5.
Yeah, they're a lot higher than they used to be. The advantage of a HELOC is you can pay as much as you want whenever you want. Right. Because it's an open line of credit. So, and every HELOC is slightly different. Some of them there's a certain payment you have to make every month. You got to at least cover the interest.
Yeah, they're looking for interest in maybe 3% of the capital, but then they'll let you take it right out again. Right.
So now a credit card, I guess, would be an even better example, because that's often the way they work. You got to pay the interest plus 1, 2, 3% a month or whatever. A HELOC, maybe it's an interest-only HELOC.
Could be.
Maybe it's kind of a quasi mortgage type vehicle, but let's assume it's an interest only HELOC.
Right.
Okay. So a system would be, I've done the calculation and the payment is $500 a month on it. Well, I can set the payment up to be $700.
Right.
So now I am automatically chipping away at it without. And I assume that's an even better example if you got a credit card.
Sure.
The best option with a credit card is you pay it in full every month.
Yeah, certainly you shouldn't be putting things on a credit card if you can't, but we recognize that people do.
Well, and if you're disciplined about it and I can get all these points and rewards and everything, great. Yep. But then you got to be paying it off right away, which again, I guess would be a system.
Right.
Problem with that system is I have to consciously go in and pay it off. And so a better system, I guess, is, well, I know that in a typical month I put $1,000 on my credit card. I get paid every week. So every week I just automatically put $250 on my credit card and I end up being even. Are there any other automatic debt reduction strategies you can think of other than that? Or is it really as simple as, well, no, you want to keep your debt as low as possible? And
no, the only way so you either to reduce debt is start with less debt in the first place. When you incur debt, have a plan for how you're going to deal with it. There's no rocket science to any of this.
Now, are you a believer or not a believer in things like automatic bill payments? So you've got your cell phone every month, it's X number of dollars. You get the alert on your phone or whatever that says your bill has come in. Do you believe in paying it when it's due? Do you believe in splitting it up and paying it every payday, or are we overthinking it?
Well, so this depends a lot upon the individual. Right. So for myself personally, I get the bill, I look at it, I decide, am I going to pay it right away? Or am I going to leave it till whenever the payment date is? But there are lots of people that if they do that, they're going to forget to look. And so I don't have a problem with automatic payments as long as at some point you actually do look at the invoice you receive to see if they've made a mistake. And Lord knows they make mistakes.
And how many of your monthly bills do you actually get as a piece of paper in the mail?
Any more? That's a good question. I think the hydro account for our house is still delivered by paper. It's run by the city. And
so you got to think about it, because 10 years ago, what was everything? Everything came as a piece of paper.
Yeah, I don't know how many pieces of paper we see anymore. That's a good question.
And I think for me, the answer is 0.
Yeah.
Because everything is electronic. And
then what do you do with them when you get them? Do you deal with them right away, or do you stick them in a folder to deal with it one time?
What my own system is I deal with them right away. Right. So I get the alert that says my hydro bill is here. Yep. So I do what you suggest. I open it up and I look at it and go, that seems about right. Or because it has a little graph. Here's how much you spent last year, whatever. So, okay, that it's gone up, but everything's gone up. So, okay. And then what I'll do is I'll look at the due date. and I'll go, oh, okay, it's due on the 18th of the month. I get paid on the 15th of the month. So I just program it to pay it on the 15th of the month, and that's it.
Right.
Now, the problem with that system is if I have, and I shouldn't call it a system, but the problem with that approach is if I've got 5 or 6 bills that are due on the 17th, 18th, and 20th, and I'm paying everything on the 15th, well,
there may be nothing left.
There may be nothing left. So a better approach potentially is to say, okay, the bill we're talking about is $100, whether it's my hydro, my cell phone, my whatever it is, internet, whatever. Okay, I get paid twice a month. So every paycheck, I'm just going to automatically set it up to send them $50. Now, that way, the bills are getting paid, but I think it's still important to do what you said, which is you got to actually look at the thing.
Oh, you have to look at the thing because, particularly, I'm going to pick on this one industry because they're notorious for it, the telecoms. If you don't look at your damn cell phone bills and your internet and all that stuff, they're going to hit you with something somewhere because they can get away with it.
Well, and the bill went up, and I don't remember them telling me it was going to go up. And in a lot of cases, if you actually get on the phone with them and find a human being who may or may not be in this country, but you talk to them and say, hey, look, I can get a better deal if I can switch whatever.
And they'll give you a better deal.
And they will give you a better deal, but you actually have to look at the bill to see that there's an issue. So I think the point we're making here today is you got to decide for yourself what makes sense. So your plan might be exactly what you described. I get my bill, I pay it. And the disadvantage of that plan is, what if you don't get your bill? What if it gets caught in your spam folder or whatever? And so when I pay my bills, I go onto the online banking thing, and there's a list of all my bills, and I click the button, and I say, here's how much I want to pay. And in my banking app, it shows when the last time I paid that bill was.
Right.
And so if I've got a monthly bill and I haven't paid it in 2 months, I've screwed up.
We got a problem.
We got a problem here. And because either I forgot to pay it, or I didn't get the bill, or it got caught in my spam folder, or whatever. And that's why the automatic system of every payday, half the bill gets paid, a quarter of the bill gets paid, then I can't really miss it.
Well, and I don't have a problem with people charging them directly to their credit cards and then dealing with their credit card at the end of the month, as long as you don't spend the cash too. Like, you've got to make sure, if your system is you're going to charge it to your credit card, then you got to have the money to pay the damn credit card. Yeah,
which is why I still default to paying everything every payday.
Right.
Because it keeps the numbers smaller.
And it's much harder to go wrong.
And so if
you're on top of it.
Yeah, if for some reason something goes wrong, well, I've missed half a bill payment. I haven't missed a whole one. And if you happen to get paid weekly or biweekly and you're doing it twice a month or 4 times a month, you're always paying extra, and you're ahead. So that's a good system for saving without even knowing it. Now, everything we've talked about today, we're just making it up.
Right. Well, we think it's common sense, but it's part of it's our training, part of our personalities. You don't get, we're accountants. We like numbers. We like money.
Right. And so, yes, for us to look and pay bills, we actually don't mind that.
Right.
Whereas I know that with a lot of our clients, like, oh man, that just
it stresses them out.
Yeah. There's nothing I hate worse than Saturday morning having to look at all the bills. So I think my concluding comments are, figure out what kind of person you are. Are you the kind of person who loves to get in there and look at all the numbers and do a budget and everything else?
And how much self-discipline do you have?
Yeah. And are you going to actually do it?
Right.
Or are you the kind of person like, you know what, I got a life. I don't want to spend Saturday morning doing accounting.
I got to put this stuff on autopilot.
I want to put it on autopilot.
Protected. Right.
And this is not just about money. We already gave the examples about health and, nutrition and fitness and everything else. If I just decide I'm going to walk everywhere, I don't really need to be carving out a huge amount of time to go to the gym every month, because I've got a system in place to do that. So my advice for everybody as we approach 2024, I mean, you may be watching this 5 years in the future. I don't know when you're watching this, because it's not live. It's not a live broadcast here. Figure out where you want to go. So do I want to have money for retirement, my kids' education, investment, whatever? How much roughly do I need to be putting aside to do that? What kind of adjustments do I need to make to my income and expenses to do that? And then put it on autopilot.
Right.
So, okay, I'm going to automatically pay my bills. I'm going to have my paycheck transferred to my savings account, whatever it is. And then you kind of can't go wrong. Now, you will go wrong because you didn't put enough in your emergency fund and, stuff happens.
Right.
Okay, so you adjust. It's not, we're not writing this in stone here. But if you can do that, you got a much better chance of success.
Makes sense.
Any final comments you would like to make on any of these topics?
No. I mean, we keep talking about it. It always comes back to you got to have some kind of plan. If you want to go, well, you want to go someplace, you got to plan out your route, figure out how you're going to get there. Break it down into pieces that you can deal with easily, stuff that you're comfortable dealing with. Then if you go wrong, and that's probably not beyond your control, it wasn't your fault.
I like that. The smaller the pieces, the better.
Right.
So, losing 10 pounds is a big number, but if I can lose 1/10 of a pound every couple of weeks, well, then it's, because it's the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time is the answer. So there you go. That's our elephant advice for today. Thanks for being here today, Ted. So everybody knows, in the show notes, I will put links to the previous episodes and other stuff we talked about. So if you're watching on YouTube or on any of the podcasting apps, they're all there. A new show comes out every Saturday morning. So please like, subscribe, hit the buttons, hit the things, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, so that we get the word out. And that's how it works here at Debt Free in 30. So until next week, thanks for listening. I'm Doug Hoyes. That was Debt Free in 30.